Hey, welcome everyone to the Apostate of Mind podcast. And I'm so excited to do a live where we're going to be interviewing the lovely Lilandra Ra. And with me, I have a co-host, Stacie Grahn from Stacie's Mom's podcast.
Hi.
Hey, Stacie.
Thanks so much for inviting me.
Sure. Yes, I know that you have a great show where y'all do deconversion stories, and so I wanted to have you with me to
Aw.
to to interview Lilandra, who, for those of you who don't know, I know a lot of people are here excited to see Lilandra, but for those who don't know, she's a social activist and science educator and has been really involved in the atheist community and movement for years. And so I know Stacie and I were talking about how we're just excited to also learn from her and
Mhm.
um, hear about what she's been involved in. Um, and so, without further ado, we have Lilandra.
Hi.
Hi.
Welcome.
As far as social activism, I've been involved with testifying in front of the Texas Supreme Court about science education and social studies standards because they make education into a culture war. And also, uh, I taught for 7 years, and of course, there was plenty of culture warring going on there with between parents and sometimes students, and other times the administrators. And because I live in Texas, so a lot of times, even teachers that are that were my friends think that it's their ministry
Mm.
Mhm.
to be a teacher and teach other
Yeah.
people's kids about godliness.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What,
yeah.
and especially where you are geographically, I was going to ask you about that. Like you being a teacher in the education system, I know people would get very protective. You're an atheist is teaching my child. Like, did that ever play out in a political way?
I didn't bring it up, but because in Texas everybody else brings religion up, they
Mhm.
ask you at work if you want to pray in before school. Or one time I was at a Christmas party for the staff, and I told my administrator happy holidays, and she said I say Merry
Oh my
Christmas.
gosh.
Mm,
And
mhm.
we have lots of we had lots of Jewish students in my school, so it's okay to say happy holidays too.
Yeah.
Well, you say Merry Christmas because you celebrate Merry Christmas. I didn't tell you not to say it, you know?
Yeah.
Right. It's
Yeah.
inclusive in that. It's not
Exactly.
leaving it out.
Yeah, I'm not telling you not to, but just,
Mhm.
I'm just trying to include everybody.
Yeah.
And I have had lots of experiences as a parent too. Um, I don't out myself at any place I work as an
Mm.
atheist, particularly not as a teacher, because it's not my job to look after or teach them about. It's not my subject matter, religion.
Right.
Sometimes there's like a tangent like social studies. One time I was teaching social studies because I taught every subject in 6th grade, and the and there's a teaks about culture and religion. So uh, the my coworker who taught in the same grade level, she said, "You know what I do? I have them all make PowerPoints, and I make sure to tell them that some of them make PowerPoints about Buddhism, some Christianity, Judaism, whatever, and I tell them Christianity is the best of all of them
Oh my
Oh.
gosh. Wow.
because there's the promise that if you obey your mother and father, that you will live eternally and stuff." And I was like, I don't feel like it's my religion. It's my purpose as a
Responsibility.
teacher to promote one religion over another.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I
And
would
just for that will out you. I don't out myself, but not saying praise God and praying with them, or like at the person who was saying, she says Merry Christmas, she's always praising God and waiting for me to praise back, and I'm like, I don't talk about religion at work, and that's offensive, you know. And so you out yourself that way. They make you talk about it.
How
And
did you find some of the students? Because I know I'm thinking of a particular family that I once knew who the parents were pastors, and they decided not to send their kids to a Christian school because they said that their kids' ministry was to go into the public schools and spread the gospel. So, how did you find some of your students to be? Were they
Yeah, especially when you're
preaching?
teaching like evolution and things like
Yeah.
that.
one time I was saying, we're going to learn about mountains today. And one of my students said, I don't need to know how mountains formed. God created them.
Mm. Yeah, so how do you handle those situations where it's lending itself to say something?
With them, with that sort of thing, I'm like, the first, I'm not here to talk about God. That's your parents' job. And two, I'm here to talk about what science knows about mountain formation.
This is the
Nice.
curriculum. This is what we're learning.
Yeah. I'm not here promoting one religion's view of mountains over another.
Yeah.
I'm just science is just about what we can test and experiment on and demonstrate. So that's all I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And
Good
that's not
approach.
enough for a lot of students, parents. They want their school, even if it's a public school, to also be on board with promoting Christianity. A lot of administrators are like that too. That same administrator with the Merry Christmas jazz, she one time she had someone who wrote a book. He was an advisor to George Bush, the younger, and he was homeless. And somehow somebody had a vision that he was important. And of course, that's good criteria for George Bush Jr. to pick somebody as an advisor, right?
Right.
And a lot of Christians want to read this book to hear his story, and it wasn't about any of the curriculum at all. It was just about how amazing God was in this guy's life. And she had a whole assembly of people, of all of us, listening to this guy. And before the assembly, she came to my class. I don't know if she went to every class because I didn't ask. And said, "Hey," she tried to get the kids all jazzed up about it.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm probably giving out, like, setting off their atheist radar or something. But I say, it's not my job. I don't talk about it with my coworkers. I don't talk about it with the students. It's not part of my job description.
Yeah.
And they just won't let it go.
Are you still teaching right now?
No. Right now, I work with my husband, Aron Ra, on his YouTube channel, and I assist him. Sometimes I write things for his channel, and I also wrote some science curriculum for. I hope you didn't hear that because my dog is gassy.
Oh, no.
No, we didn't.
I did not hear it.
It's a mastiff, so he's gassy. We're trying to figure out his digestive issues, so changing to the more fiber diet means more gas. Anyways, what was I saying?
You write the science paper, or
I wrote some science curriculum for a national company.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Wow.
And it's really hard to work in education because especially when you're Googleable. And so I don't go by Lilandra is a username. And
Okay.
I've had, even at like job interviews for a school, people go, "I'm Googling you now." And I feel nothing because what's going to come up under my birth name or under a married name is not matching anything that's. It shouldn't be shocking to be an atheist to anybody.
Yes, that's such a good point. I love that you're giving us these tips because I wanted to know about that, like how you manage your real life with your activism, and especially this being such a controversial topic where people do change how they treat you, and could things could go badly if people do find out. So that's interesting to hear. That's good.
Yeah, I think I don't remember a story offhand, but other people who are public, like on the internet, they've had their students find out. The only example I can think about right now is like the teacher who had an OnlyFans account and she got fired. And I'm like, I don't care what she does in her off time.
Yeah.
Has
But
that taken you time to get to that point to be more and more open, or were you kind of open up front
I was
with
never
sharing?
I was never open about a I've been publicly online with my face, but not my name. But sometimes people find out about me anyways.
Right.
Because like I'll have untrustworthy family members at my kids' school, and then the next year, every Christmas program carol is going to be about Jesus. After
Even
that,
in a public school, hey?
and that's
Wow.
fine. But, like they
Yeah.
were, I went to the other ones, and they were singing secular songs like Jingle Bells,
Yeah.
Then the next year, somebody's talking about how I'm an outspoken atheist, and then it's all Jesus songs. Praying to God at PTA meetings to do something about the budget.
Mm.
When y'all are the ones electing people in Texas who cut the education budget, then you're going to pray about it. It's like how they deal with mass shootings too. No, we're not going to pass any laws about gun regulation. We're going to pray about it.
Yeah.
It's so true. And even what you said too about how it is a culture war, and even just having that approach to the PTA meeting or to business or the classroom, it does have an influence, because even though I wasn't raised religious, I was just raised with it around me and my culture, my society, and that alone indoctrinated me. And so voices like yours is so important to get a different perspective and to challenge the status quo.
It's sort of like the gay rights movement. Whenever you don't know someone well, it's easy to make them into monsters even.
Yeah.
Like they're always talking about you can't have any homosexual scout leaders or something like that, as if they're all pedophiles by default. And once you get to know people and you see a lot of friendly faces on TV that are gay or lesbian or trans, and you start to or if you have friends or family that are like that and you actually know people, it's harder to be prejudiced about it's harder to prejudge them.
Totally. Such a good point.
Yeah.
And so atheists being out in the open does help other atheists, but still, I don't know what your experiences with it is, but still people, depending on where you live, still treat you like you have another head growing out of your neck or something if they hear that you're not religious or you're an atheist. And I'm a little bit above that. I'm a little bit militant and outspoken about it.
Rightfully so.
Yeah. My sister doesn't talk to me because even though my brother's an agnostic and has been an agnostic longer than I've been an atheist, because I deconverted in my 30s, he I'm not okay. It's okay to talk to him, but it's not okay to talk to me because I'm in your face about it.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and so I think knowing that about you now, I think it was so shocking for me to learn. And so I wanted to kind of share with our audience. We know your husband's Aron Ra, and both of y'all have been very active in the atheist community. And so I think most people would assume, surely y'all met in the atheist world and like bonded over your disdain for religion, but that wasn't the case, was it?
No, I was a Christian when we first met.
Ah,
I was
That's
in my
so
30s.
crazy.
Yeah, it was about 20 years ago.
oh my
And
gosh.
the internet was just coming along, and Arn didn't have a YouTube channel yet, but there were internet forums, and we met on Christian forums.
Okay, you have to. Can you share the story? Because
Yes.
I would have assumed the exact same thing that Anne just said, that you met in activism together or you've known each other forever. Like, I would love to know how this came to be.
It seems like a long time now, 20 years. And what's weird to me, and this is a tangent, is being 53 is I'm starting to meet people who don't know who Vince Neil is.
Hmm.
You don't?
Nope.
Ah, see?
Either.
You don't either?
No.
Should I Google him and maybe I'll know his face?
You don't know who Motley Crue is?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
now
I
you
know the face. I just Googled. Yes, I know the
Okay, you
face.
just don't know him by name.
That's
yes.
correct.
And
Okay.
so, like, I'm just getting so out of touch now.
I know
Anyway,
Motley Crue. I just, yeah. And I said I'd recognize the face 100%. Okay.
okay. And what were we talking about? Because I went on a tangent.
Meeting-
How you met
Meeting Aron
Lauren,
Oh,
on the Christian
Okay.
forum.
and a Christian forum.
many long years ago, in the early days of the internet.
Yes.
Um,
Okay.
I went there because I was homeschooling my children. They were under 5. I
Okay,
had
so you
3.
homeschooled your kids
Yes, that's
as a creationist or taught them creationism?
Old Earth creationism.
Okay.
old Earth. Okay.
Honestly, though.
Still
But I didn't believe in
creationism.
human evolution from monkeys. When my brother told me he was agnostic, I was in my 20s. I said, I said the stupidest thing. I said, so you believe in we came from monkeys? And
So why are there still monkeys?
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
what
why
you
there's still
said?
monkeys? So I was,
I'm
that's
guessing
how
saying that.
insulated I grew up
Yeah.
in Texas.
Yeah.
And anyways, so I went online to Christian forums, and I was just curious about where things came from because I love mythology. So
Mhm.
I was in the creation evolution forum, and Arn was there with maybe like 20 other atheists in a forum that has 19,000 people, mostly Christians.
Oh my gosh.
And they're debating people on why are there still monkeys, those kind of questions, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I learned a lot. And at first I was, because of like Doctor Who and different space things like Star Trek, I never believed in a young Earth.
Mhm.
Because the stars are so far apart and all of that stuff. And so thank goodness for Doctor Who and such. But I still didn't get the other piece of it, like biological evolution,
Mhm.
as
Mm-hmm.
much as I could have. And I'm embarrassed to say that my daughter's nursery was decorated with Noah's Ark. So like it's very not scientific at all.
No, that's okay.
And
We don't
It's
judge.
cute.
Yeah.
it's not a cute story though, but
But
we
it-
made it cute.
No,
Well,
the animals
I-
getting on the
Yeah.
boat.
I've said the same thing to my husband since I'm like, it's crazy that like that has become such a typical thing for a children's nursery. Like, oh, here's a genocide story. Let's just put it like all over the wall. So cutesy. But you're right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But they're all gonna die except for 2 of them, apparently.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
And all the people too, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little kids, everybody. And
Yeah.
so it's like it's a genocide story. It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's an
Yeah.
incest story too.
It is.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
messed up.
It's horrible, but
So
we
let's
we
put it in a nursery.
Disneyfy it.
Yeah. We Disneyfy
And
it.
so I was there in that forum and saying the ignorant things that I was raised to say.
Mhm.
And I learned a lot. And I came to realize, you know, when I went to the zoo, and like creationists will make fun of you for saying something like this. If you look at chimpanzees, their hands are exactly the same
Mhm.
as ours,
Mm.
Yeah.
except for the opposable thumb. Yeah.
Mhm.
And they have color vision. They have molars, just like we do.
Yeah.
The reason why we have to take our wisdom teeth out is because human skulls, we don't have the space for all of those ape and monkey teeth
Mm.
because our faces are flatter. We don't have that jaw working. And so, like, how did I not see it? It's so close. It's more alike than similar. Like there was a creationist first started classifying animals, Carolus Linnaeus, and he was like, I can't put humans in a different group from apes
Mm.
because we're very, of course we are.
Yeah.
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 And
Mhm.
like we're talking apes basically.
Yeah.
And so, or if we were based on another model, we'd be talking canines or
Right.
talking cats.
Yeah.
So it's like a talking car saying I'm not a car. You're
Right.
obviously very obviously a car.
Did you
And
see
Oh.
those similarities when you were a creationist? Because I was a creationist, and even though I didn't believe in it, like in evolution, at that time, when I would look at monkeys and I'd see the comparison, or apes, or when I would see the comparison in the hands, it would be really hard to deny it. But I would tell myself, no, 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 it's not. That can't be true. Did you see
Mhm.
those similarities, but then have to tell yourself, no, 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 there's no way that happened?
There was a creationist geologist who was a really smart person, uh, and and he performed science every day for oil companies,
Mhm.
and he would just put that in the back of his mind. He'd pass all of. He said he passed a bookstore window, and there was all these geology books about old
Right.
Earth, and he would just put it out of his mind. I mean,
Mhm.
the one about being an ape, you can kind of understand, although it's unfair to apes, because apes are awesome. And I'm not a damn dirty ape, like Charlton Heston
Mm.
or something.
Right.
But they're awesome. So uh, you can kind of get that. And he
Mhm.
he he wrote this essay. He called it. His name is Glenn Morton. It's called Morton's Demon. And he said there's a demon that kind of like Maxwell's demon. I forget the context, but of Maxwell's demon, it might be math. I'm bad at math, that's why I'm forgetting. And
It's
because I
okay,
go
I
against
am
the
too.
Asian stereotype that I'm good at math. And um I that will anything it doesn't want the brain to see, it blocks it from coming in, you know? And
Right.
Mhm.
it's got this demon in there,
Oh my g yeah,
Not
yeah.
Mm.
not a real demon, but the demon sometimes has other contexts, like, I think there's demons in, computer programming, but not real
Okay.
demons.
It's
But
like
Right.
our bias.
yes.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
It's a metaphor. And so, like, that's what it is. Like, it's plain to see. When you look
Mhm.
Mhm.
at your nose, look at an ape's nose, it's as
Yeah.
plain as the nose on your face
Yeah.
that we're apes.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I just people can't face it. And
Yeah.
they're made in the image of God. So that makes it even worse. So they're not just apes, they're not animals either. They're like some kind of form of God.
They're
Mhm.
special,
It,
chosen.
Yeah.
yeah, it's quite a step down
Mhm.
to
They've
realize that
been demoted.
Yeah.
yeah, you've been
Exactly.
really demoted and debased. But it's not it's also uplifting if you think about it the other way. You're a part of everything, interconnected.
Right.
You're not apart from everything. You're not separate. You're part of
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
It's beautiful.
Now you share something in common with other life.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're
And
really yeah. Go ahead.
I'm fascinated to hear. I know you started off by saying you were homeschooling your children, teaching them
Yeah.
old earth creationism. So at what point do you, change your beliefs and then have to tell them or teach them something different?
Mhm.
How did that come about?
Aaron was a part of that.
Wow.
Uh, he was on the forum, and he was one of the people that helped me to realize because he has this whole even we wrote a book together recently. We Are All Apes. It's about the fact that humans are apes.
Mhm.
And so but before that book came from when the Talk Origins Usenet days, before the forums, before YouTube, and he was trying to convince creationists that they're an ape, and they don't want to know this.
No.
You know, it's forbidden knowledge,
Yeah.
and so like that helped, and other people showing me how the way the world really works helped, and like a lot of times religion and sometimes public schooling is guilty of this, of killing the innate curiosity and the experimental nature of children.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
for me, for me, to know how it actually happened is fascinating. To other
Yeah.
people, I don't want to know that, you know, or that
Yeah.
didn't happen. My Bible says,
Yeah.
and they just keep blocking it, blocking it, blocking it, and rationalizing it. And it's not true. You're like this ape sitting here talking about how you're not an ape. It's just silly, you know?
That's so true. Oh my goodness.
And
I was
so Arn was a really big part of that.
I was
And
just gonna share, sorry, really quick, your
Oh,
book right here, "We're All Apes."
mhm.
And do you wanna tell us a little bit of something about it?
um i- it's it's basically taking all the characteristics that apes have that humans also have.
oh, cool.
And it's undeniable by the end that you're an ape. And uh, if the first similarity is we have single multicellular single cells, right?
Mhm.
And it just it's just similarities piled on similarities to you get to something very specific, that we're not dogs, we're apes. You know, we might be mammals, but we are specifically apes. So
So helpful to have that to be
Yeah.
able to explain to people, because I think it is just a knowledge gap, and to be able to
Mhm.
point out, "Here are all the similarities we share, here's the evidence." And so I love that, that's so important.
there's
So
so
please.
much resistance even now to teaching it that way.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Whenever I've brought that up in a science classroom, um, that we're apes, people sometimes students say that's racism,
Oh,
because
Oh.
what?
yeah, because that's the other context that 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 was used as an insult,
Mm.
and
Wow.
it's not in that context.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And like the way I could counter that with them is to show them some apes that are light skinned, you know. So it's not it's not like
Hmm.
a race thing.
That's that's crazy. The only way that like, when I tell my husband, like, "Did you know this about evolution? Did you know?" Which he obviously did,
Mhm.
because he never believed in creationism. But he's like, "How did you not learn this in school? You went to public school." And
Exactly.
I said, "Well, I did learn a lot of this, but I just would kind of learn it, do the work, and then be like, 'They're lying to me, they're lying to me,' and just put it out of my head." So I don't even remember learning this information. I just did the work and forgot it because I felt like it was just I was sinning, or I just didn't I'd be like, "Sorry, God, I just have to do this to get my work in." So I'm almost wondering if a lot of the students might be doing that too, if just to
Yes.
yeah.
I've had
Totally.
students who were like, when I was teaching language arts and one of my colleagues was teaching evolution at that grade level, she's like, "Can I sit in your class? Because they're gonna talk about evolution." I was like, "Well, why don't you just sit and listen? You don't have to accept it, you
Mhm.
know."
Mm.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
that I try not so hard not to talk about it, but it's so hard in public school not to get a target anyways if you don't talk about it. Religion, at least it was for me in Texas.
Mhm.
Yeah. Just
Wow.
wanted to share Jackie's comment. She says she'd love to see your militant side, your militant atheist side.
Well,
'Cause you're so sweet.
I think that's your superpower,
Yes.
though,
Yeah, I
because,
think
like, you have
so.
such a sweet but clear and simple way to communicate
Mhm.
that it makes people wanna listen.
that's nice. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you so much for the super chat, Jackie. That's so kind. I
Yes.
love when I see a super chat. Even if it's not
Yeah,
my channel, I get excited.
I feel I feel
And
like um I feel like you're saying that they can picture me as militant, and if you would picture me with horns on, I go to like Satan Con and stuff like that. And that is totally shocking. That for people that I grew up with in my community to even they say the word Satan in hushed terms.
Oh gosh.
Is that
Like
shocking to yourself, or was it shocking to yourself at first to, like, put on horns and
I
see how far you've come in
yeah.
your belief system?
with that, as a kid, I was frightened by all the demon stories and all the Satan stories in the
Oh,
Bible.
100%. Yeah, I can
They're scary.
relate.
Like demons possess a man not because he did anything wrong according to Jesus, but because to glorify Jesus.
Yeah,
Mhm.
That's scary. So you could do nothing wrong, and this thing could happen to you. So
yeah.
it's scary,
Oh, good
and I
point.
would have nightmares about it. And
Mhm.
becoming atheist and realizing the world is not haunted by ghosts or demons or the
Mhm.
devil, and it was a relief.
It would almost be like taking back that power.
Yeah.
That's how I would imagine it being like, "No,
Mhm.
I have nothing to be afraid of. I can put these on. It means nothing. This is just."
Yes. It means nothing.
It lost
Yeah,
Exactly.
its power.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
You have no
exactly.
power over me.
Yeah, and when I was deconverting, I allowed myself to even just learn about the Satanic Temple, and that felt incredible, like, just watching videos about it and being like, "I can learn about this, and hey,
Mhm.
they're actually a pretty cool organization," and there was no guilt or thinking, "I opened a door to the devil now." So,
Yeah,
Mhm.
you're
yeah,
gonna, like, be like the exorcist because you played
exactly.
Believer or something.
Yeah.
And I was the same in my 20s.
Mhm.
I would go to a bookstore, and in the religion section, there would be the Satanic Bible there by Anton LaVey, which is the Church of Satan, not the Satanic
Yeah.
Temple. But
Mhm.
I was like, "Oh," like it had some
Yeah.
kind of, like, evil power in it, and it's just a
Yeah.
book.
Yeah.
Now it's just a book to me.
Totally.
People stop shopping at stores just because there's any kind of demonic.
Mhm.
Even the person who designed that outfit
Mm.
is atheist or
Oh,
Satanist, and
yeah.
then they won't go to that store anymore.
Yeah.
Even something where the person doesn't identify it, like witchcraft. Like, people freaked out over Harry Potter for the longest time.
Oh, yeah.
I never read it or seen it because I was like, "Oh, I can't. That's opening a door."
It
Giving
Yeah.
the devil a
yes,
foothold, a
exactly. That's
Mhm.
stronghold.
exactly what they think.
It's
We and
normalizing witchcraft.
one time,
Yeah.
my small Southern Baptist church, they had a haunted house, and it was one of the funnest things we ever did because a lot of times it was boring.
Right.
Church was boring,
Mhm.
even Sunday school. And you had to be good and had to be nice even though somebody's boring the crap out of you. And
Mhm.
and that was one of the funnest thing we did. Never happened again.
Wow.
I just as an adult went to my first haunted house, like, just last year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was so fun.
Yeah. It's so fun doing those things and just enjoying them for what they are, and
Uh-huh.
my kids
Super
just
fun.
celebrated their 2nd Halloween this last year, and
Mm.
they're 12, almost 10, and almost 5, and it was their very 2nd Halloween.
We'd have to rename Halloween as All Saints Day or something
Mhm.
just
Yeah,
to kind of
exactly.
celebrate
Oh.
it. They take everything fun and take all the fun out of it.
Mhm. Make
And just
everything
because it's
demonic.
popular, like Easter's coming. It has a pagan goddess name, Easter.
Mhm.
And what did Jesus have to do with, like, chocolate bunnies?
Yeah.
How does that fit into the nativity story? Or no, this is the
Mhm.
The
resurrection.
resurrection, yeah.
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 And how
Yeah.
does that I mean, we're all eating these chocolate bunnies in honor of Jesus.
Yeah.
How does this work? You know, why are we hunting eggs? What does that have to do with Jesus?
So
Mhm.
I was curious, so I learned about you that I guess your mother was Catholic, so I'm assuming you had a religious upbringing. So how you were raised different from now how you are raising your children with a different
Mhm.
worldview?
There's to say that before I deconverted on Christian forums, like I was saying, I was homeschooling. I was Christian homeschooling. I had like a felt board with like little Christian cutouts to do, like even the Noah's Ark
Like
thing.
the Satan's Guide to the Bible video.
Yeah, and you
Like
could
those
use
cutouts.
yeah,
Have you seen
cutouts,
that
but
video? Yeah.
there were so many pieces to it, and it's just like cutting all those hundreds of pieces out, is too much. But and I showed them VeggieTales. I don't know if
Oh,
you know what
yes.
VeggieTales
Of
are.
Mhm.
course.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
cer
still
That's
sing the
all we let
songs.
our kids watch for a while.
yes.
Yeah.
VeggieTales is funny.
I
So,
do like some of the songs still, I'm not gonna lie.
yeah,
I will
I don't
catch
like
myself singing them. Yeah.
the message behind it,
No.
but like Joshua on the big wall making like a massacre of another
No.
culture cute, it's not that's what they do.
Mhm.
And but it's funny. And I still listen to some of their songs sometimes. And I raised my kids that way with that. And they had a Bible man costume one day one of my sons. It's so embarrassing. It's like I forget his name. Willie Ames, way past his Charles in Charge days, I guess. And he
Okay.
even went back further than that. I forget what he was in before that.
That
Family
was Bible Man?
Yeah, Bible
I don't
Man.
know Bible Man.
I don't
Oh, you didn't watch Bible Man. So,
Mm-mm.
No.
he's like they do it's like a rip-off of superheroes, only he's got the armor.
Okay.
Oh.
He's got a sword of
The
whatever.
sort of the spearhead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's terrible.
Shield of whatever, yeah.
It's cheesy, corny, and not at all funny, like VeggieTales is. And and so I did all that to my kids, but after Christian forums, after I deconverted, I was already having problems in my marriage, but this even drove a wedge in further. And then um, I divorced. I left Odessa, Texas. I moved to Dallas. Me and Arn had already been talking on the internet, on Christian forums and such. And so me and Arn met, and we dated, and we got married. And Arn helped. So I'm finishing my story eventually.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Yeah.
And we got married, and then he helped raise my kids, but I would have raised my kids atheists at that point too,
Mhm.
Mm.
because I started to realize how much that, just like how they make VeggieTales makes the Bible look cute, it's not cute. It's
No.
awful.
Yeah.
It's an awful thing to do to your kids. It was an awful thing that happened to me, to be so frightened of hell and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And you could try and leave all of that out and say, well, I'm just teaching my kid how to be a good person,
Mhm.
but that's not in there either,
Yeah.
other than turn the
Mm.
other cheek. And some of the commandments, some of them are trivial, like blasphemy.
Yeah. And keep the Sabbath. Like, okay.
Yeah, like no, there's some moral lesson in it. Okay, like flooding in the entire world and killing babies and everything,
Mhm.
that's moral to you.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Slavery.
And
Yeah.
and other Christians now tell me, "What about Jesus? Jesus is different. The New Testament's different." Okay, I'm like, "Okay, Jesus, the person that said that Gentiles were like dogs." I,
Mm.
I asked my dad about that when I read the Bible when I was 13, and
Okay. What
Mm.
it's
did
like, just don't question it. You, yeah,
Mhm.
there's that verse that Jesus was talking about how someone who was not a Jew wanted to join them, and that was they were unclean because they didn't observe kosher laws or whatever
Oh,
to
gee.
them. And he said, "Well, even a dog eats the crumbs at the master's table, so they could join us and pick up some of our crumbs maybe." I don't know. It's just so
Mhm.
racist and
Yeah. Well, it's
condescending.
interesting you say how he said don't question it, because when I told our former pastor we were leaving, he said it's okay to ask questions as long as those questions don't lead you to abandon your faith. So it's like, so really it's not okay to ask questions is what you're ultimately saying.
It's okay until you ask those questions.
Until you ask the
Mhm.
wrong question.
Don't ask the wrong
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah.
Then the defense mechanisms kick in.
Mm-hmm.
I-
Yeah.
Even when I was a Christian, I'd watch them go someplace else in their mind when I asked them about suffering as a Christian. Why does God allow these things to happen? And they're
Mm-hmm.
like, they just, their eyes glaze over.
Yeah.
Like, I hate answering this question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I
And
was
There's a lot
even
of logic gymnastics that have
for
to take
sure.
place. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I was seeing on my news feed today, like how Trump is now selling a Bible, right? And I made sure to like see. Okay, I'm seeing it on memes, but I'm like, is
Oh
this actually
man.
true? And it is. And I thought, well, the Christians who support him, the way that they'll justify it is how, well, in the Bible, God is a God of redemption. Like we see how he redeems David, we see how he redeems, and they'll just have a laundry list of people like, look what all the sins that they committed, and God made him a king. God did this. So it's like they'll have out for everything. So I'm like, well,
Yeah.
they'll have an out for even Donald Trump and why it's okay that he's now selling a Bible. So
I was still a believer when he was president. I remember
yeah.
doing that myself. Like, I
Oh
guess
yeah.
God's using
Exactly.
somebody who's a con man. And he's going to use him
Yep.
for his own
And
purposes.
How
yeah,
did
what
you
But
become a believer if you weren't raised by believers?
how did I become a believer?
Yes.
Truly, it just being what everybody believed around me. So it was just like, that's what's true. That's what everybody says.
That's
yeah.
what everybody who goes into teaching or psychiatry to witness, that's what they want. They want access to other people's kids.
Hmm. And that's what you're fighting for. And so tell us more about some of the um, specifics, like what policies you've been working on to change.
It's been incredibly uh, more disillusioning than I already have been disillusioned. And how can that be possible at 53? After being
Mhm.
Mm,
disillusioned by religion, now I'm starting to be disillusioned by people.
Right.
I mean, after 2016, I was genuinely upset after that election. Like a lot
Mhm.
of people were, and my people, my friends that are people of color or marginalized, are like, Why are you surprised by this?" And
Well,
I was raised by white Southern people on my dad's side and Vietnamese Asian people on my mother's side, and they're like, "Why are you surprised by this?" Because I want to believe that some of the people I was raised around, even if they were conservative Christians,
mhm.
because most of them were, because it was Texas, that they have some shred of decency.
Mhm.
And then, like what you're saying with Trump, how they're rationalizing him, that God could change him. So that's some kind of tacit admission that they know
Yeah.
that he does things wrong and very wrong,
mhm.
Yeah.
and God can change him. Well, when is that going to happen?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's true.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
even if you don't go to people, what about the things that God does in the Bible
Mhm.
that are awful?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Well,
doesn't
well,
correct.
he's God. We don't know the mind of God, so we can't question God. Who are
Yeah,
Mhm.
we? We're just feeble-minded
yeah. Like
sinners.
Ken Ham, like when me and Arn were protesting the Ark Park, um, because for lying to children and such. And I
Mm.
visited, and of course, there's parents in there lying to children about what's
Mhm.
going on, and not intentionally lying, but spreading lies. And like I forgot my train of thought there.
So y'all
Sorry,
visited the Ark Park and
the
were
Creation
protesting?
Museum? Is
The
that what
Ark
you're
Park, like
Oh, is that what it's
full,
called?
there's a Creation Museum,
Oh,
and
okay.
then there's the Ark Park. It's not a full scale, but it's a large boat in the middle of Kentucky.
Yeah, okay, I've heard of that.
Yes,
So you guys went
and
there?
yeah, we went
Okay.
there, and Ken Ham, like he saw a podcast that I did, and he said that I'm my own little god.
Yeah, that's not that sounds like very much Christian rhetoric. Yeah,
Yeah, but so like if
Mhm.
you question things or you think for yourself,
yeah.
and you don't do what God tells you, or what Ken Ham says that God tells you to do, you're your own little god, making your own
Mhm.
decisions.
Mhm.
Yeah.
As if that's a bad thing for you to have agency and autonomy and
Mhm.
your
Yeah,
own
so
thoughts.
you guys were there. I'm wondering, like, did they let you walk around? Because I mean,
They
Aron
did,
is a very recognizable and
and they
so are you,
recognized
but
him,
yeah, and did
and
they
they took us into one of the rooms. They gave us these, ham and cheese sandwiches,
Oh, that was
and Arn argued with one of them. He didn't argue with, Ken
yeah.
Ham himself, because when we were visiting, Ken Ham was giving Bill Nye a tour of the Ark Park.
Oh, y'all were
Oh,
there
at the
for
same
that?
time?
Yes. He was
Oh,
right at
I've
the
seen
opening
that.
of it,
Well, this is
and
a
everybody's paying
story.
attention to them, and, but they did spot Arn because someone talked to him.
And were they saying, like, giving him a talking to or just
They
saying,
know
like
who they're talking to.
no, I know, but, like, I'm just wondering what were they saying, like
Oh, they were it's hard, it's so hard because I hear these same arguments over and over again to differentiate who said what, you know?
mm,
They were arguing about evolution, of course,
oh, okay.
Mhm.
and that's happened to us more than once.
Yeah.
Like, some Christians have bought us, lunch after we come to protest them, even though, like, we protested, it may have been Kinham, I'm not sure, at
Mhm.
a homeschool convention in Houston, and of course and at the Ark Park too. They had a drone and they were making fun of us to them, you know, our protest, and Kinham was also making fun of us at this, Christian homeschooling thing, and but they still they'll give us the biased lunch and try and talk to us. This one guy was a Calvinist minister, and I was like,
Mm.
him I remember. I don't remember what they said at the Ark Park.
Okay.
Him I remember. He said that I asked him, "How can you believe that you're one of the select few that
Mhm.
isn't going to hell?" I forget what the number is, but it's under two. It's around 200,000,
Mhm.
Okay.
and all the billions of people who've lived, you're one. He says, "I just know." And I said, "What
Mm,
kind of just God, what kind of a omnibenevolent God, merciful God would would throw billions of people into an everlasting eternal fire torment?" And he said, "Well, I don't look at it that way." He said, "I
Logic
look at it that
mm, yeah.
everybody nobody's God. Look at God. Nobody's God. He is perfection, never is sinless, etc. But we're all full of sin, and he's the perfect judge. So the fact that he saves any of us is merciful."
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because you
Yeah.
really deserve that. He's
Yeah,
Yes.
saving you from that. That's how they
Yes.
twist it.
Yeah.
yeah. But
Yeah.
you're the guy that's throwing babies into an eternal fire,
Yeah.
except for the
Mhm.
elect few. So like,
Yeah.
and then you're judging me?
Yeah. Yeah,
Are you
some Calvinists do believe, like, some babies in like, if they miscarry in the womb, they'll go to hell, or if they're not saved by a certain time, yeah, they do believe some babies do go to hell. And I remember our Calvinist pastor, he preached once, and I was like, "What are you about to say? Like, if you are about to preach that if a baby dies before they're saved, they're gonna go to hell." He didn't. Not all believe that, but I was just, like, on the edge of my seat, like, "What are you about to say?" Because I was gonna get
Mhm.
really mad.
are you a former
Yeah.
Calvinist?
Yeah, for a short time. I was raised, like, non-denominational, but charismatic Pentecostal,
Like
and
Billy
then
Graham?
yeah, I listened to Billy Graham and
Yeah.
all yeah, but, like, speaking in tongues and all that fun stuff, and then the last year and a half, as I was basically deconstructing, I kinda went into Calvinism for a little bit because I was like, "I need to get really strong in my theology, and I wanna know the Bible so well," and, yeah, I became a member at a Calvinist church, and that was, like, the worst decision I ever made.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, that it I don't
Yeah.
for me, all I can see with this feeling that you're the elect, out of all the billions of people, and it isn't that you accepted Jesus in your heart like other Christians believe. They just believe that a certain few are going, an
Yeah.
elect
Yeah.
number of people are
God
going.
chose, and whatever
Yeah.
you do or decide to believe or not, it's like
Yeah, you had nothing to
beyond
do
you.
with it.
Yeah.
God chose
Yeah.
you before the beginning of time, and
Mhm.
you had no decision in it. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
The vanity of that to me.
Oh, yeah.
After how many billions of
Right.
people came before you.
Mhm.
Even when I was a Christian, I would ask my father when I was young, what about if you never heard of the word Jesus? Because
Mhm.
he believed the only way to salvation was Jesus.
Yeah.
And what if you never heard of Jesus? What if you live in China, you're Buddhist, never heard of the gospel ever?
Mhm.
He's like, well, they're going to hell.
Yeah.
That
It's not only that he was a mean man. He was 6'2", and he spoke really gently and stuff like that. But that's what the Bible tell. That's what his interpretation of the Bible tells him. So he's not going to deviate from it.
and you think that's not my decision. That's what God's doing. He has his reasons for
Yeah.
doing things. But that really shook me too, because
Yeah.
I spent 2 semesters studying abroad and got to go to 5 different Southeast Asian countries, and there was no Christianity and no Jesus around, and they were doing just fine, and, like, I
Mhm.
met so many wonderful people, and I'm like, "What? They're doing fine without
Yeah.
Jesus and God, and they're good
Yeah.
people, like, how is this possible?" And it really, um I remember calling my dad, like, "I just don't know, like, how is this possible?" And so that is a hard one to swallow, to think that
They're
God
just
would
gonna
would
burn in hell
only
one day.
right,
Yeah.
And
just because you didn't
sometimes,
hear about it.
Yeah.
sometimes when you say that, other Christians will say, "Well, maybe God's calling you to ministry."
Mhm.
It's okay. Well, sure, but what about the people I never talked to or no missionary ever reaches?
Mhm.
Yeah.
They're just gone, just like that. That's too bad.
And then
Yeah.
they say that you'll know, like, people will know by the stars in the sky and things like that, but no, I mean, that
Mhm.
doesn't tell you about all the intricacies of Jesus and what you have to believe and all of that. So that was something that didn't make sense to me either.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. And whenever you start thinking like that or talking like that, even when you are a Christian, people kind of close off. They wall off
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
they don't want to let it go.
Or they're like, "I don't
Yeah.
need to understand, I just believe and I
That's what
have
I
faith."
would do. That was my kinda go-to. Like, 1, I have faith, and 2, I'll understand it when I'm in heaven. I don't need to know everything now, so I'm good. I'll just be oblivious and carry
Mhm.
on. I love Jesus, so don't talk to me about this.
Yeah, I was
Exactly.
that way too. Like
Yeah.
maybe it's something I don't understand,
Yeah.
and
God's
I'll know
ways
Mhm.
are
better
higher than
after.
my ways.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
My little human brain can't
Yeah.
comprehend.
yeah.
Exactly.
It's like there was a big deal growing up too. And my little woman brain couldn't understand.
Oh,
Yes.
jeez.
I call that the "don't you worry your pretty little head"
Yeah.
argument when they say that. When they're like, "Well,
Yeah,
God is so big." Okay, that's your way of saying, "Don't you worry your pretty little head about
Yeah.
that."
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And it was more than that. Like I grew up learning that I was inferior to men,
Mm.
that
Yeah.
I'm a helpmeet to a man, that the
Right.
man is a representative of God, and I'm their servant.
Mhm.
Jeez.
The Bible does say that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and women aren't supposed to teach in the Bible.
Nope.
And
Mhm. Such a
as
good
it,
point.
and the Adam and Eve story always used to irk me as a kid. I was like,
Really.
because my mom's Catholic, so because I'm a woman, I bear children in pain and suffering
Mhm.
because of something one woman did way back when,
Mhm.
and supposedly did, right?
Yeah. And
Doesn't
Mhm.
make sense.
not just that, the first thing that is technically done wrong is by a woman. So it's
Mhm.
like it all comes right back to a woman. It got you can't trust women and just fault yeah, it's
I
that used to
swear,
actually
if I've ever talked about childbirth or menstrual pain, somebody along the line has told me, well, Eve shouldn't have bitten the apple.
Oh,
Mm.
jeez.
What's
Yeah.
happening?
That mindset is so detrimental to marriages, to women, even in career, in their
Mhm.
personal life, and
Mhm.
even in the medical world. Like how much apathy is there for
Oh,
scientific advancements and helping relieve, menstrual pain and childbirth
100%.
if you believe that you deserve that and that's part of what God is giving you.
The
Yeah.
Catholic Church opposed, they still oppose birth control, but they opposed anesthesia during childbirth because
Oh.
when it was
Wow.
first being developed, because that was our punishment from God.
Mhm.
Wow. Unreal.
So uncompassionate, uncaring,
Mhm.
inhuman to look
Yeah.
to look on people who are suffering something that because Catholic Church priests are men, but I guess the nuns do this too. They shame women as well, and
Mhm.
that you don't have to go through and say no. They have to go through it
Yeah.
because the
Mhm.
Bible says.
Yeah.
Some other things that were shocking to me are little things like, how we circumcise little
Mhm.
boys, and it's like
Mhm.
you don't think about that as a believer, and then afterwards you're like, "Oh my gosh, we're totally accepting this as a society," and you don't really challenge those
Mhm.
ideas.
And you're
Yeah.
not in the room for it unless you're like an Orthodox Jewish,
Mhm.
and it's probably I wouldn't even want to see a video of it.
No.
And I think Aron on one of his episodes had a doctor who was saying, "Yeah, I perform circumcision and I purposely don't want the parents there because it's pretty
Oh.
awful and graphic and so yeah, that there's a reason why parents don't usually witness that."
Wow. I have 3 boys, and we opted not to, and I'm really glad. And we had a Jewish doctor, and he's like, "There's no reason for it." So, and I was like, "Okay, thanks. Not gonna do it." It just sounded like, "Why?" And we read up on it. It's like, "No, there's no reason for it." So, it's like, "Yay."
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I did do that, but that was like 20
It was a
years ago.
yeah, it was
It's
also
such
very
a
pushed in society, like
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm.
So,
It's a
It's
given.
a
it
culture
was
thing now.
yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
I
They're
think
yeah.
people are changing a lot of their views and looking into like it was just kind of like oh, you have a boy, that's what you do type of thing, right? Years ago. So when we had a boy, I was like, oh, what do I do? What do I like? So, and he was like, it's not like a necessary thing. And he was Jewish. He's like, unless it's like you want to do it for religious reasons, he's like, don't worry about it. And I was like, oh, okay. So, yeah.
The medical reasons are overblown, like infection,
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah, for
and
sure.
then like they'll even have like psychological reasons that you don't want your kid to be bullied.
Yeah.
In the locker room and stuff like that because they're different from the other boys.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
it's just a mind trip,
Yeah.
and for no reason at all to
Yeah.
inflict that kind of suffering on babies. The Genesis and the first few books of the Bible are obsessed with circumcision.
Yeah. That was I think at our Calvinist church, because they preached a lot from Genesis and a lot from the Old Testament. After a while, I was like, there is so much talk about circumcision. Why are we talking about circumcision so much? And then they're like, well, it's more of a heart thing. And I'm thinking, no, like I'm picturing a little penis every single time you say this. Like, what is the obsession on circumcision?
Yeah,
Like,
It's literally foreskins, like,
yes, I'm
"Here's
like,
100
you're saying
foreskins."
yes. I'm like, this is so weird. Like, that's when my deconstruction really like ramped up was in that Calvinist church because I'm like, there was just they actually got into the Bible so much, and that's what did it for me was like, this is weird, you guys. And
You
so
learned too much about the Bible. That's what led you
I know,
to not
like
believe.
some of the chapters in the Old Testament is basically they circumcised him, or you should circumcise nearly every verse in the
yeah,
chapter. Like how many times you have to repeat this
yeah,
in one chapter?
yeah.
And
Mhm.
there's a story of Moses, his wife Miriam, I believe her name was, through they didn't circumcise their baby boy soon enough, and God came to kill them in this story for this reason. So she hurried up, quick thinking, and circumcised her son, threw it at Moses' feet, and God didn't kill him.
Oh, jeez.
That's how
Yeah, I think I
obsessed
remember
they are
that
with it.
story. Yeah. It's like,
Spared by
ew.
foreskin.
By a foreskin.
She's quick thinking. I couldn't have done that,
No.
physically, you know.
It's super weird. Like, it's
Mhm.
really weird.
It
Yeah.
is.
It's just some kind of in-group thing.
Yeah.
This is how we know that we are Jews. And when you get to the
Yeah.
the New Testament, well, they can't sit at the table with us. They're not circumcised. They can't go to church with us. They're not circumcised. They're obsessed with it.
It's like, how do you know? Do you check checking IDs? You check
They
your
don't
robe.
do it because they're Gentiles.
I
That
know.
wasn't the practice
Yeah.
as widespread as it is now among people who aren't Jews.
Mm-hmm. Well, what are there any activism that you're working on right now? Or what are the projects you're working on right now in general?
Right now, I've just I just got back from a cruise, and it was a free thought cruise. There's another one in 2016 with Andrew Seidel and my dog. It's distracting.
Oh.
With Andrew Seidel, who is, I don't know if you know who he is.
Yeah.
He is an attorney and very skilled in talking about separation of church and state.
Mhm.
And so they asked me to talk for them in February, and me and Arn went on a cruise, and I was talking about the thing that is hard is it. I guess a lot of women are focused on it now with this being an election year, abortion rights.
Mhm.
And I can't believe that my children got a worse sex education than I did in the 1980s. And as a teacher, I've sat through these abstinence only presentations discouraging condom use.
Wow.
And they're horrible.
Wow.
And so I was talking about that and the loss of Roe versus Wade for my daughter. In Texas, you can't get an abortion even if you're raped. And I forget the last numbers. There's at least 18 million people here. Half of them are women. And not to leave out trans men who can also get pregnant. But anyways, and people were shocked when Roe versus Wade was struck down. And I grew up as a Christian. That they were never secretive about that, about wanting abortion to be outlawed. And then everybody was surprised after Trump appointed Amy Coney Barrett and Kavanaugh, Catholics, arch Catholics, that they struck it down. And I had atheists arguing with me in 2016. It'll be fine. Gay rights will be fine.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, I'm glad that you can understand liar better than I can. Liar. And so you taking his word for anything. Why? And knowing who he was beholden to. As we get right back to the fact that he's selling Bibles now.
Yeah, exactly.
As somebody who's a former Christian, they would think, a lot of the Christians I used to know would think he was worldly. And he is.
Yeah.
Who could be more worldly than him?
Yeah.
And he's still proudly so. And a sinner in the adultery thing, which, I'm not here to judge him, but this is the person you think represents you as a Christian that you're going to buy a Bible from.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
As like if there was a Christian God and that was a just God, but that does not what's depicted in the Bible. What if that were so? Y'all are gonna roast in hell. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to see him roast in hell for being ignorant, because that's kind of harsh.
Mm-hmm.
But oh my God, like he's got all the signs of being the Antichrist, and you worship him. Some of them even over Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not exaggerating
Mm-hmm.
at all. There's this pastor who was talking about Jesus, and like the Christian parishioners were complaining that Jesus that he was talking about some of the peace stuff. I forget what their criticism was, and are you a Christian or not? Like, are you Christian for some parts of the Bible, but not for others?
Mm-hmm.
And people that are liberal, progressive Christians, I ask the same thing. Are you Christian for some parts of the Bible, but not the others?
Right.
And really, that's how it has to be. Like, there's hardly any Christian who believes the same as any other Christian. You kind of
Yeah.
have to pick and choose which you'll accommodate to.
And that's why there's so many denominations.
Mm-hmm. Well, and because there's so
Some,
many contradictions too. It's like,
Exactly.
which one do you believe?
Yeah.
yeah, and some even add their own text to it, like Mormons.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is the standard Christian?
Yeah. I don't think
Yeah,
there
there's
is
no
one.
standard.
I don't think there is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The talk that you gave in February, I actually listened to it this morning. It was really good. So
Yeah,
it's on Aron's channel if anyone would like to go and listen to it. It's really good. And I liked the Q&A at the end too with all the people that were there. So
I wanted to talk to people about it
Mhm.
because before in the atheist movement, before 2016,
Mhm.
and the organization was American Atheist, but they've changed since then. They've changed leadership.
Okay.
They were inviting secular pro-life to table at the American Atheist Convention.
Oh, okay.
It's like inviting the Discovery Institute to have a big tent. There's some people who are not Christians who believe in design or whatever. They think it was aliens,
Right.
And it's ridiculous. And some of the leadership would tell me, well, it's not the right time to talk about reproductive rights when all of the opposition comes from religious people, and
Mhm.
I would even say persecution of women, because here in Texas, around 20,000 women gave birth to children by a rapist.
Mhm.
They had
Whoa.
no choice to give birth or not.
And I heard that
Wow.
I can't remember the exact numbers, but something about the majority of them being like 15 and under, very young group of girls, majority Hispanic, if I'm not mistaken.
And the suffering, and when you give people like in my speech, when you see people like Michael Johnson, I almost said Michael Jackson, and Mike Johnson, and our House Speaker, he said that because of Roe versus Wade, we don't have labor, workers.
Mhm.
So that's the whole point. Even make a 15-year-old, 14-year-old who was raped give birth, because you get labor out of it, workers. It's like, that's not a woman's sole purpose, is to provide workers for your economy.
Yeah.
Or church members.
Yeah.
Yes, it's horrific, and people are living that life. They were living that life before, because when I was young, I had a secular sex education,
Mhm.
but I still avoided Planned Parenthood. and birth control because of my religious upbringing.
Yeah.
And I don't want this like cycle of poverty for my children or for anybody else's children either. And certainly nobody should be forced to give birth to risk their life. And that's what happened to Kate Cox here. The doctor told her she had a non-viable pregnancy.
Oh.
And so she appealed it. No, she wanted an abortion, and the doctor was going to give it to her because technically, life-saving or health-saving is part of the bill down here for an abortion. But then it went to the Texas Supreme Court, got struck down. She couldn't do it.
Oh my
And
gosh.
our attorney general said that he would prosecute anybody that helped her. So she had to flee the state.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
And they're not wanting, like, in general, that movement's about the government not getting in your business and for
Yeah.
everything else except that.
And weren't you also saying, like, in your talk, was this the same story where if you went to another state, you could get prosecuted for going? Yeah.
So
That
they're
is
trying
crazy.
to pass laws to shield the people's names who have to flee the state. But everybody knows Kate Cox,
Crazy.
though. In other states, they're trying to pass laws to shield women who flee the state. And as we were talking about, mostly Latina women are in those numbers that are forced to give birth. Not everybody can afford to flee the state.
No.
You have to
Especially
take
if you're
time off.
underage.
There's
And
hotel. There's
You have to get parental permission.
Oh my gosh.
And not everybody can take a day or two off to travel out of the state when they could have just gotten it done in their city. And there's waiting laws too, waiting periods. So add that to your time off. You could get fired for taking, in some jobs, for taking for over 2 or 3 days off. And being able to afford it also, because the Hyde Amendment, it's not covered under insurance, and maybe unless it's a medical procedure, like for some kind of medical problem. Like I was talking about in the speech how I was getting an ultrasound of my uterus for other problems, and the ultrasound tech was telling me that there's an exception. She was insisting there's an exception for the health of the mother. And you see how that plays out now, right? When you don't have a protection from the Supreme Court. No, there isn't. Like the unnecessary suffering. And they'll quote it right back to you and say, what about all of these babies? Even though under 3 months, the ability to feel pain, like they always go these heartbeat bills. At 6 weeks, when these bans are in other states, these are beating cells. It's not a fully formed heart,
Right?
And they're just beating cardiac cells at that point, and they're just it's not the same thing. And even if there was like pain involved, you couldn't force anyone, man or woman, to donate you a kidney because you need a kidney.
Yeah.
But we can force women to give birth even if they're raped, even if they've got a medical issue.
Yeah.
That could risk their life. And for me, I don't think you should have to have a hard case to have an abortion. If you don't want, you're not ready to be a parent. You're not ready to be a parent. Plain and simple.
Yeah. Or if you have done having your kids and you're done having your kids, you shouldn't be forced to.
That's the majority of women who get abortions, women who have children already.
And there's so much more to, I mean, yes, the want has to be there, of course, but even like having a healthy partner, having the means, having, there's having the lifestyle to be able to care for a child.
It's not such a black and white issue. And that's definitely something that being in religion, they've made it, I mean, everything is so black and white. There's no room for nuance. And I think, as we probably the three of us know after leaving religion, you see that there's just so much nuance when it comes to every topic. And
Mm.
for me, it was being able to just look at things not so black and white, like good, bad, yes, no, and not having to make these hard decisions on and think, so just no, I could not do that, or you shouldn't do that, and just seeing like, oh, you know what, if that was a situation, yeah, like I could see why someone would have to make or need to make that decision, and it's not up to me to make it for them.
Yeah,
So
even if they don't have extenuating circumstances and they have the financial ability, or they even have the financial ability to not work.
yeah,
If somebody doesn't want to be a parent, why are we in the business of forcing them to be a parent?
yeah,
Like this ultrasound tech, she was telling me, oh, these women they get multiple abortions. They use it as birth control, and like this is totally inappropriate, of course, because I'm getting a pelvic exam at the moment, you know, and I told her, I'm not judging anybody that gets multiple abortions, because I know how hard it is to. Some people can't even tolerate contraception, birth control pills, and I'm not judging on that. But if this person is truly irresponsible, you want them having more children?
right,
I mean,
And birth control is very expensive. It may be cheaper to do an abortion than some of these birth control options.
particularly if you don't have insurance.
If you don't have insurance.
Yeah, like it's so much. It's like you're saying, it's not black and it's not everything's not black and white like they make it out to be. You're gonna have to use your brain.
And everything doesn't happen for God's purpose, like God planned it. So you have to just
and
like go through that.
that's actually what I was thinking when I was listening to your talk this morning, is when you're a Christian and you believe that God's, like, say like someone was essayed and they got pregnant, they would think, well, a Christian would be like, well, yes, that was a horrible thing, but obviously God intended for that child to be here, and that's not our right to make that decision to kill that child. That's how they would interpret that situation, like God
Exactly.
had a plan. So when you're no longer a believer, you don't think that everything is by God's will and God's plan and for his glory. So you take that out of the equation, and it's like, no, this is a horrible situation. And you find out early you don't want to live with that. It's like, okay, you no longer have any kind of emotional attachment, and you can make those decisions. But as a Christian, you're like, well, obviously God intended that, even though it was a horrible thing that happened. So,
and I told this obvious Christian woman who was going on about it during my public exam, it's not just going to affect women that are Democrats, don't vote the same way as you do, or progressives, or people that you don't respect. It will affect you, your sister, your friends, your daughter, and you can't punish a group as large as people with uteruses without getting some of you too in there. And it shouldn't have to be that way, and we shouldn't have to learn that way. But we are learning already. And what you're saying about how it's God's will, this is what they think. And this is why you put women's lives, like Kate Cox, are being put on the line. The doctor says that you have a non-viable pregnancy. I don't agree with the doctor. God's will, a miracle could happen. We need to stop adding all of that. Just let doctors do their jobs.
Yeah.
Michael Bell shares that my friend's wife would have died. Her body couldn't even carry to midterm. And so those are things you don't know. And so to force a woman to carry the baby, I mean, those are important considerations to make, is the health of the mother as well, and viability.
Yeah, and like that's what happened with Kate Cox too. Our attorney general. I don't agree with the Dallas County, I think it was Dallas Circuit Court that said that this was non-viable pregnancy. He's not a doctor. and you're disagreeing with the doctor, not just the
Mhm.
court. And it's none of their business, and they just can't get over that.
Yeah.
They think it's their business because God.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And ultimately it's their business so that they can have more babies, more cheap labor that they will not support after birth.
Mhm.
Keep the minimum wage low,
Mhm.
we're already having this problem with gentrification and people not being able to afford to live in some of the more desirable areas of cities, I suppose, and even any part of the close to the city in some cities, and like this is what they want. They want more cheap labor and more division between rich and poor, like the vanishing middle class. It's wrong.
Yeah.
Mhm. Well, I wanted to share this kind of light note comment. So a question that somebody has from Aunt Jer. Question for Lilandra. What is your best dish that you cook? Assuming you cook. I don't know if you do. And what is Aron's favorite thing that you cook?
Aron and me, but Aron especially, loves spicy food.
Oh,
Loves
yes.
it. Like over the top.
His hot sauces. Yes.
Yes.
He's
I'm
known.
there too. Like if you look at a Scoville level, jalapeno, no, bell peppers on the bottom, and jalapeno, habanero, we're above habanero. And then like a Thai pepper, and then you get to the million Scoville, that's where we're at. Like ghost pepper,
Oh.
we'll do Carolina Reaper, but he doesn't like the flavor as much. And so he loves for me. We just made a batch of chili with ghost pepper. It's not his favorite dish. His favorite dish is curry, and you make curry with chilies too. Sometimes, like we've had curry at restaurants, and we'll say make it spicy. We won't send it back, and they just give us that same thing because they don't want people to send it back or they don't want to get injured or stuff 90% of the time. And sometimes they'll just knock us on our butt and they'll teach us for being impudent, And like one time we went to one in New York and it was just, I was like, oh, I want to try this challenge. And like for the challenge, you get a free beer if you finish it. Free beer, big deal. And she's like, no. If you're hungry, you don't want to do this. So okay, just bring us a sample. Just from that small sample on a spoon of rice, we were all turning red and having difficulty breathing.
Oh no!
And tears were coming out of our eyes. And we laugh at this, we're crying, but we're laughing at this.
Wow!
Love it.
Oh my goodness.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. This was such a great talk. So many pearls of wisdom in there, and good to learn about your book and what you're working on. So thank you so much for joining us for the audience. Thanks, Stacie, for co-hosting.
Oh, this was awesome. Thank you for having me, and it was so great to meet you, Lilandra.
It was nice to meet you too.
Yeah.
I'm not sure yet. I did do a podcast called The Nuns, and this is where Ken Ham noticed me and my cohorts, and I might be reviving that on Aron's channel. I'm talking to someone that I know, and we might bring that back since the nuns have passed every other religious belief system in the United States.
Wow.
Well,
You
keep
should
us
bring it
posted. I'll
back.
be happy to share it and
Mhm.
get people to check it out.
Okay.
That sounds great.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Bye.
Yeah.